the winner here gets into our top 8.
A fair amount of marbles able to be accumulated in this matchup.
I was going to say all the marbles, but it's not the finals.
No, it's just it's a reasonable amount of marbles. Yeah. Some of the best games are often played for a reasonable amount of marbles. And here we go. We are ready. Benjamin Nikolich leading on tap. Steam Vent's going to pass the turn over to Ryan Overturf. Has a fetch land on turn 1 and just shoves back to Nikolich.
Yeah, it looks like Overturf reliant on at least one copy of Thing in the Ice for this game. Not wanting to expend any sort of cantrip type effect early on. Wants to make sure he can potentially transform those Thing in the Ice as early as turn 3.
And man, does Benjamin have to be happy with that turn 2 play. Probably the only meaningful turn 2 play his deck has access to here. It's Search for Escanta, hoping to get that supercharged, get an upgrade in mana, card selection, all of that good stuff.
All right, the turn 2 here from Overturf. He's going to be fetching up a land. I'm curious to see if he actually fetches up a shock land or a basic. Looks like he's going for the shock land. That's going to give him access to traverse the Ulvenwald at some point if he so chooses. But your life total can matter in this matchup. Jeskai Control has the ability to turn on a dime and start pressuring your life total with things like Snapcaster Mage as well as Lightning Bolt and Lightning Helix and really shift the meter in their favor, even when they're a little bit behind on the battlefield.
Yeah, that's spot on. This is not Azorius Control kind of without any reach whatsoever. This is Jeskai Control, and the burn spells can fly fast and furious when we get to the end game. You see the Thing in the Ice entering the battlefield for Overturf. Yeah, just a land from Nikolich.
He's going to need a 2-card combo, basically, to kill this Thing in the Ice with Bolt Helix, Electrolyze Bolt next turn or something like that. 4 toughness here, notably very strong against Jeskai Control. And if Nikolich wants to burn something like Path to Exile on this Thing in the Ice, that's just going to make a future Arclight Phoenix safe.
And Overturf certainly knows that, more than willing to give up a Thing in the Ice to a Path to Exile if it means Arclight Phoenix is going to be able to live through multiple removal spells. And there you see a second copy of Thing in the Ice entering the battlefield. Let's see if Nikolich has a response here. Nope, going to let it enter. 4 counters, of course, on Thing in the Ice. Nikolich going to fetch. Probably find a tapped shock land here and pass the turn, or go ahead and take his turn after that point.
Yeah, there's a chance he just kind of cycles this Electrolyze. He knows that in this matchup, he needs to make sure he fills his graveyard so he can transform Search for Escanta quickly, but he also needs to make sure he hits land drops, and he knows Electrolyze is not very good in the matchup at all. Now, Overturf is not playing Terramander like some of these newer iterations, so Electrolyze value decreases significantly.
There you do see Electrolyze from Nikolich. Going to draw a card off the cantrip. Untaps. See timely reinforcements in hand for Benjamin.
That one's a stone blank at the moment. Doesn't gain life because Overturf has dealt himself quite a bit of damage from his mana base, as well as the Thing in the Ice ability being able to transform and bounce all of those tokens.
I think Nikolich also with a Path to Exile in hand. We'll see when that gets deployed. End of turn. Looks like Overturf is fetching here, falling down to 13.
Yeah, I would love to see a really big turn from Overturf next turn. End of turn Thought Scour to peel a counter off these Things in the Ice. Follow that up on his turn. He has at least a Manamorphose in hand. I'd love him to basically just go for the Gusto, try to find an Arclight Phoenix off your couple of cantrips, use something like Faithless Looting to discard them, and transform those Thing in the Ice and swing in for a big attack.
Does look like that Shockland's going to come into play tap, though, so no end of turn spell from Overturf. Going to go ahead and draw. Another fetch land off the top. It's a Scalding Tarn. There's a Manamorphose in hand for Overturf. Looks like a Gut Shot as well. Faithless Looting. A lot of options here for Overturf.
I'm going to love it if at some point Ryan gets a Gut Shot himself to turn off the life gain ability of timely reinforcements.
Yeah, that would definitely fill out your bingo card, Todd.
I don't have no bingo card.
The bingo card in your heart I was speaking of.
Oh, my bad.
Which I can read very clearly, by the way.
Oh. Hey, Arclight Phoenix off the top. Thought Scour really showing what it can do in this deck.
Overturf has to love that.
Now, drew a Serum Visions. likely going to cast that, just looking for another Arclight Phoenix, red floating off the Manamorpho still, looking for another Arclight Phoenix to discard to that Faithless Looting to really get the pressure going here in the middle of combat.
There is that Faithless Looting. Going to go ahead, draw 2, find 2 to discard. Unless, there's always an unless when playing against Jeskai control.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Nikolich has a Path to Exile in hand. He has a Cryptic Command in hand, but he can really only cast one of them. The question now becomes, does he have Snapcaster Mage? Because if he has Snapcaster Mage, what he can do is Path to Exile one of them, play a Snapcaster Mage,
and he
target
does have Snapcaster Mage.
Let the Thing in the Ice's ability resolve, and then flashback Path to Exile on the Awoken Horror with that Snapcaster Mage safely back in his hand. Unfortunately for Nikolich, though, looks like Ryan does have Gut Shot to prevent just that, but we're still going to see Path to Exile take care of both the Awoken Horrors, and the Arclight Phoenix is going to come in and rumble for 3.
All of this, of course, with Faithless Looting still on the stack.
Oh, absolutely. And we get to fetch, so the Scry from earlier losing a little bit of value from that Serum Visions, but still got 2 digs to hit, a second, maybe even third Arclight Phoenix, and of course a lot of spells cast this turn. But we get to ditch 2 lands since we're pretty heavy already, bring back that Phoenix and swing in for 10. I'm actually pretty curious which one Nikolich actually targets with this Path to Exile from the graveyard.
It's a decision, to be sure. Let's see where Nikolich is going to go.
I have a question.
I have an answer.
Nikolich's list, how many planes are in his deck? There's a decent chance he actually has to shock himself here. I believe he only has 1.
2 planes.
He has 2. Luckily for him, he has 2 planes. Very good deck building here, making sure he doesn't have to take an extra chunk of damage from his mana source. His life total in jeopardy in this matchup.
I do have to point out, I believe Overturf failed to search from the first Path to Exile.
No, he got the island.
Oh, the island was gone? I thought he cracked a fetch for that. I'm sorry. Okay.
He was mid Faithless Looting, got Path.
Gotcha.
He has plenty of basics. I believe he has 4. Nope, he has 2. The green splash hurts a little bit on the basic front.
Right.
Ross Merriam's is that version, pretty heavy on the basics, usually somewhere around 3 island, 2 mountain. Sometimes 2 and 2, depending on if he wants to play that garbage Sulfur Falls.
So Nikolich did, in fact, get rid of the Awoken Horror, now facing down a Arclight Phoenix. Not the most threatening to his life total at the moment. In fact, even going to take a shock here, falling down to 13. What's the follow-up? I see 5 mana in hand.
Yeah, and this is where the Jeskai control deck starts to get dangerous.
Just a pass here, but of course, with Escanta the Sunken Ruin up.
Right. And that's the big one. Escanta the Sunken Ruin, as well as 2 extra mana to play some instant or sorcery afterwards. It's going to be tough sledding for Overturf if he doesn't close this game quick.
Yep, finally Nikolich getting paid on that incredibly effective 2-drop. Going to be flush with answers for the rest of the game in all likelihood. You see a flashback Faithless Looting from Overturf.
Would not be entirely surprised if this gets countered. Nikolich here going to look like he's going to cast Cryptic Command to counter it and probably draw, but I think there's a decent argument to actually just bounce Arclight Phoenix. That 3 damage here matters a bit.
Right, and a bit of a time walk as well, as it couldn't be redeployed there, but of course it has haste, so that's less meaningful than with other creatures.
Yeah, next turn, look for Overturf. Now that he's basically out of juice, he has a Bolt, 2 lands, and a Phoenix in hand. Good chance he just casts Phoenix and tries to attack for 6.
Yeah, I think the window is closing rapidly, and if Overturf isn't getting aggressive, he's going to have a very difficult time closing this game out.
I mean, as long as oh, this is a Bolt me type scenario. Bolt me, even Bolt my own Phoenix can prevent those 1/1s from getting active, but that'll require Overturf to have a significant chain of events.
He is going to bolt himself, heads up play from Overturf, preventing the life gain from the timely reinforcements, potentially, assuming this resolves.
I mean, it's a 6-point life swing either way, right? Because either Nikolich goes to 16 and you stay at 11, or Nikolich stays at 10 and you go to 8. Now, the 1/1s actually from timely reinforcements are going to end up being relevant because Overturf's life total is only 8 points.
Right. And with all the burn in that Jeskai deck, you see the difference between Jeskai and the Azorius control list.
Now, it looks like Nikolich actually has a Lightning Helix in hand, if I'm not mistaken. So if he finds a burn spell off this Ascanto the Sunken Ruin.
Here is a second copy of Arc-Light Phoenix now joining the fray. Nikolich, no response. Arc-Light Phoenix is going to fly over those soldier tokens.
Yeah, here Nikolich is going to play the conservative route. He's going to Helix. Oh, wow. No, he's going to Helix Overturf, putting himself at 13. He's going to fall down to 7 from the attacks. That's going to leave Overturf at just 5 life. With a 3 coming in, it's going to put him at 2. And any burn spell off the Ascanto or the one off the top.
There it is.
That's a Helix, baby.
Lightning Helix. Well played from Nikolich. You could see why he refuses to give this deck up, regardless of what all the naysayers say.
Just a stone-cold master.
Yeah, it looked very impressive there from Benjamin. Up a game against Ryan Overturf. Actually, looks like that's the first game to finish down in our feature match area. We're going to head to the sideboards now. Start with Ryan Overturf. 2 Ancient Grudge, 2 Life Goes On, 2 Rending Volley, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Spell Pierce, 1 Dispel, 1 Fairy Macabre, 1 Magus of the Moon, 1 Lightning Axe, and 1 Blood Moon. Todd, what do you like here?
It's tough, right? Something like Blood Moon could potentially shut off Celestial Colonnade, could potentially shut off Ascanto the Sunken Ruin, but it costs 3. It has no real immediate impact on your aggressive stats in the game, and if Nikolich is heads up enough about it, he could just be fetching basic lands anyway because his life total is in jeopardy. So there's a chance even if you do side in the Blood Moon, it doesn't do that much. So I would probably not bring it in. What I do like, 100%, the Spell Pierces and the Dispel. I think those cards are quite good in this matchup at stopping things like Cryptic Command, helping you win counterspell fights in certain weird spots, and even protecting your larger threats from something like Path to Exile in the right scenario. Not a huge fan of Rending Volley. Even though we had a couple burn spells go to the face, I think stuff like Life Goes On is just not really for this matchup. You're going to lose the games like that against the control deck from basically any spell. It doesn't matter that it was a burn spell. In that scenario, just the Ascanto the Second Room is going to turn the corner on you. The Life Goes On, the A life, is not something you want. This is more of a teaching moment, I think, for a lot of players out there who are perhaps maybe new to Modern.
Of course, always appreciate when you throw in those tidbits for our viewers. You see things have swung dramatically in the past few minutes as all the players on the team of Ashton, Nikolich, and Wu have picked up a game in their matches. 1 game lead on all fronts for that team. We're going to head over to the sideboard of Nikolich here. We have 3 Surgical Extraction, 2 Celestial Purge, 2 Dispel, 2 Vendilion Click, 1 Lyra Dawnbringer, 1 Settle the Wreckage, 1 Geist of St. Traff, 1 Baneslayer Angel, 1 Negate, 1 Engineered Explosives. Todd, what do you like here for Benjamin?
So I think the 2 big Angels in Lyra Dawnbringer and Baneslayer can both come in. Those are significant roadblocks with high toughness that are very tough for the Teamer Phoenix deck to deal with. I don't really like Geist of St. Traff. It kind of gives you a different angle of attack that you might not normally want, but given the right scenario with all your power removal, you can ride a single Geist of St. Traff to victory, and there's not a whole lot the Phoenix deck can do about it. Their counterspells are usually only going to be targeting instants or sorceries, so if Nikolich has played this matchup quite a bit, there's a chance he's already figured out that Geist of St. Traff is quite good in the matchup and may bring it in himself. Other than that, I like Dispel as a way to fight over those post-sideboard counterspells, as well as occasionally snipe something that could be deemed as a little too problematic, just like a Lethal Lightning Bolt or something like that. 2 Celestial Purge is a solid removal spell for Arc-Light Phoenix. And then Surgical Extraction obviously can steal all the Phoenixes with the trigger on the stack.
So we are in the last of our standard rounds right now, but that is certainly not the end of our tournament. Quarterfinals up next. And if you want to have influence over exactly what you're going to see in the quarterfinals, it's time to subscribe to the SCG Tour. You want to do this anyway. Come on. We're the top Magic broadcasting group on the planet. #1, SCG Tour. I'm putting it out there right now. You want to see good Magic, you come to the SCG Tour. We hook you up with Cardboard Live. You get deck lists right on the screen. You get to see standings right on the screen. We jam out all those deck lists for you overnight. You can check them out over on our website. If you want to support everything that's going on in the SCG Tour, make sure you support us via the Twitch subscription program. You get to decide the quarterfinals. You get the custom emoticons and the badge, and it's only $4.99 a month.
All right, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I was told by Mr. Cedric Phillips on Thursday night that this weekend, the Roll Tide emoticon badge should be live on twitch.tv. If you subscribe to the channel, there's a good chance there's a Roll Tide emoticon waiting for you.
It better be being spammed right now, if it exists. We don't know 100%.
We see one.
You got one?
No. Make sure it's not the one from my channel, because I have two from my channel. I don't even know what it looks like.
Todd, very specific about which roll Todds are going to be showing up on screen.
It's okay.
We'll take any roll Todds. Any roll Todds you have, please spam them in the chat right now. We're very appreciative. There'll be more roll Todds coming in the future.
Hell yeah. Roll Tide.
I'm glad you haven't tricked me into an actual Roll Tide or Roll Todd thus far.
Well, you know what they say. Let me Roll Tide, and I won't punch you.
Is that what they say?
I don't know, man.
No, I've heard that before. That sounds right to me.
Look, I had a thing where I was going, and I lost it, so, you know.
You do what you got to do, Todd. In the meantime, we will watch this match between Ryan Overturf and Benjamin Nikolich. See both players leading on just lands on turn 1. Does Overturf have a follow-up here?
Very likely a thing in the ice on turn 2 if there's no play on turn 1. Well, if Ryan actually has a copy of Dispel, there's a chance he wants to play that thing in the ice on turn 3 with Dispel backup.
Right, little protection. You see a copy of Spell Pierce in Overturf's hand. Definitely spotted that one. I think there's also a Thought Scour. Didn't quite catch the rest of it, but we'll keep updating as we move through this match.
Could be a slow burn type of hand here for Overturf, and that's not really something you want in this Jeskai control matchup. You need to hit hard and fast and really put the screws to them before they get set up.
Yeah, definitely the ideal way to play this matchup is fast and furious. I do think you can steal long games. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. You're not as desperate as some other decks against Jeskai control, but at the same time, you would much prefer to be on the battlefield early.
Yeah, just both players developing here. Overturf fetching. My guess, he's going to cast his Thought Scour here. Try to dig for a little bit of pressure that he can cast on the third turn with Spell Pierce on backup. Hopefully hitting something like Arclight Phoenix into the graveyard. Though notably after sideboard, Nikolich does have access to quite a few copies of Surgical Extraction, so if Overturf is playing heads up, he's going to need to make sure that that card doesn't really punish him.
Yeah, tricky card to play around for the Teamer Phoenix deck, but you can do so. I will say, despite seeing Ryan for a few rounds now and being excited about this Traverse the Uvenwald technology, I don't think we've seen one cast, at least in the matches we've covered thus far.
No, but this is the type of matchup where Traverse the Uvenwald is very good. If you're able to get Delirium, giving you extra copies of things like Crackling Drake, Snapcaster Mage, and, of course, Thing in the Ice is potent. Having your threats be super resilient against these control decks that have a bunch of bolts and helixes and things like that is ideal.
Right. Ryan does now have Delirium. No Traverse the Uvenwald in hand presently. There is one in the graveyard, though. Here we see a Faithless Looting from Ryan. Going to draw 2, choose a couple to pitch.
Wow.
Do you see 2 Arclight Phoenixes there?
I do. And what I actually see also is a Manamorphose that can be cast off of Island and Breeding Pool thanks to that hybrid mana.
Right.
And if he goes for, well, he has Surgical Extraction here. What Ryan can do actually is preemptively use Surgical Extraction to take a look at Nikolich's hand. And he may do it before casting this Manamorphose because he also has Thought Scour, Spell Pierce, right? So he could go Surgical, Thought Scour, hold up Spell Pierce, and that actually counters an opposing Surgical Extraction too with those triggers on the stack.
I think that's a real heads-up play, Todd. I think it's like another high-risk, high-reward spot. You're not getting maximum value out of your Surgical Extraction, but you assure you're putting some value on the board immediately. Overturf, though, going to pass on that, just plays the Manamorphose.
I will say this, even if Nikolich had Dispel, Spell Pierce, Spell Snare, something like that, in that spot, Overturf still had access with the Surgical Extraction to get the Phoenixes back this turn. The danger is if Nikolich pauses mid-Manamorphose and thinks, well, there's a chance that if this Manamorphose resolves, that floating mana means Phoenixes aren't going to come back.
Here we see a cycled Hieroglyphic Illumination from Nikolich.
Interesting to note, too, Surgical Extraction is also a pretty good counter to an opposing surgical extraction because you can exile the one being targeted by surgical while quote-unquote failing to find the ones in your deck. In hidden zone scenarios, with cards like surgical extraction, even the fetch lands that are fairly common, you can choose to not get the thing you're searching for.
Yeah, excellent point. And maybe Overturf leaning on that as his form of protection in that scenario.
Yep. Even if Nikolich had access to surgical extraction there, Ryan Overturf could have used one of his own to protect the rest of them and still gotten one of his Phoenix back to apply pressure.
So Overturf going to get to untap with those Phoenixes still on the battlefield.
I think it's important to note Overturf actually left in Lightning Axe in his deck as a nod specifically to something like Lear Dawnbringer or Baneslayer Angel being so problematic as the games go later.
Yeah, I think that's smart. You know those cards are coming in. You can't leave yourself cold to them. Lightning Axe, though, you could get a few points of versatility, possibly pitching Arc-like Phoenixes in certain situations where they're incredibly valuable. It's narrow, but nice that it can come up for you.
Yeah. Path to Exile here, taking care of that Arc-Light Phoenix permanently, but one still rumbling in. I'm curious if Nikolich values his life total enough to just go ahead and fire something like Lightning Helix at the one in play to gain some life as well as prevent that 3 damage attacking.
Let's see here. That's a big life differential, but doesn't really answer the problem in any long-term sense.
Now, with that Spell Pierce looming in Overturf's hand, I'm very curious to see how the rest of this game plays out and at what point Ryan actually decides to implement that protection spell.
Looks like the damage is going to get through from that Arc-like Phoenix. Nikolich going to fall to 10. Overturf has a follow-up here with Thing in the Ice. Deploys that to the battlefield.
Yeah, Ryan trying to figure out the best way to play around something like Supreme Verdict next turn. But with access to Crackling Drake on his follow-up turn, I don't even think something like Supreme Verdict could be that big of a deal. So pretty heads up, casted Thing in the Ice there, wanting to apply just a little more pressure to the Jeskai control deck and force their hand. Wow. Now Overturf gets the fetch. He's going to go down to 18, but he's going to find his 5th land. Now he's going to be able to play a Crackling Drake with Spell Pierce on backup.
Wow. Powerful position for this Phoenix deck to be in. Do you think that's a search for Escanta deployed to Benjamin Nikolich's side? Hoping to get that engine online, but Nikolich did just cash in the entire graveyard for a Logic Knot, so it's going to be a little while until that land flips into Escanta, the Sunken Ruin.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And this is a great spot for Overturf. Basically everything working on all cylinders, and he even found a Dispel
off the top
to go along with that Spell Pierce. So.
Yep, setting up some nice protection on Overturf's side now. We'll see if this is the turn that Crackling Drake gets deployed. Obviously, Arc-Light Phoenix is going to rumble first. Here's a Lightning Helix.
Yeah, don't want to fight
says
over that
no
one.
problem. Go right ahead.
Yeah,
and here's the follow-up.
Very tight play here by Overturf, and didn't even balk. Didn't even for 1 second think about whether or not to protect that Phoenix. Had already had that mapped out in his head, knew that it was a very high possibility, and understanding exactly how this matchup is supposed to operate.
I think that Drake is quite large right now. Not in the realm of lethal. I don't think it's going to be doing 13 on the next attack, but it's going to be doing some serious damage, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it feels like Overturf has all his bases covered. Lightning Axe for Lear Dawnbringer, Dispel for a Cryptic Command, Spell Pierce for a Teferi.
Right.
And also looks like at least one card draw spell, so he can maybe even bring back the Phoenix next turn with a lucky string of draws.
And here is a Cryptic Command. Looking to bounce that Drake. Spell Pierce is going to be deployed by Overturf. Interesting decision. He had to choose between Dispel and Spell Pierce. Not 100% sure that was the right choice. We'll see as the game progresses.
I think it is always okay to use Spell Pierce on a spell like Cryptic Command in spots like that, simply because you may not get an opportunity in the future,
right? Because
it's a soft counter spell,
right?
Something that your opponent can eventually play around if the game goes long. Dispel obviously stronger when your opponent has more mana, and if something like Path to Exile or Celestial Purge gets cast next turn, you would be saying the exact opposite. I don't know if he should have used Dispel or Spell Pierce in that spot. Looks like Ryan here is going to be pretty aggressive. Looks like he's trying to flash back Faithless Looting, trying to figure out a way to do lethal here with the Phoenix in the graveyard, plus that Crackling Drake on the battlefield. If he finds a Lightning Bolt and another 1-mana spell to cast like a cantrip, this could be the end of game 2.
Oh, yeah. There are combinations of lethal without a doubt. You see 7, Ryan being good enough to track the number of instants and sorceries in graveyards in exile. You see a Faithless Looting can get a redraw there. Going to go ahead, pitch Lightning Axe. And I didn't see the second pitch. Let's see.
Thing in the ice, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right. There they go to the graveyard. Second play.
Yep, another Faithless Looting if he's able to hit an instant or sorcery here.
Looks like it's time for Surgical Extraction. Let's take a look at the hand, perhaps.
He could actually Surgical Extract in his own card in the graveyard and search out multiple copies.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he was going to do, I believe. And you see Nikolich picking up his cards. Heads-up play from Ryan Overturf.
Yeah, in a lot of those spots, we've seen people start to main deck 1 and 2 copies of Surgical Extraction in that gut shot slot, specifically because graveyards are an important part, but also because of Crackling Drake, a single Surgical Extraction is effectively +4 power.
Right. Really cool play from Overturf. Going to tie up the match at 1 game apiece. And you see also the Lynn Ashton match tied at 1 game apiece. This is going to come down to the wire, Todd. This is a high-pressure grinder for one of those last potential slots into the top 8.
You know, even though I am in love with Tommy Ashton's Grixis Phoenix deck, I'm going to have to root for my boy Ryan Overturf.
I understand.
He is my compatriot in the booth.
You have competing priorities here. I get it.
But also Liz Lynn, a very strong Dimir Shadow Pilot. Always happy to see those. As well as Azorius Aggro, Jacob Hagen. I can take him or leave him.
We'll be sure to convey that message to Jacob.
Yeah, I'll leave him.
So you see the sideboards up on the screen there. Todd, anything you want to reevaluate after those games? Anything that looks a little bit stronger to you? Again, play-draw considerations you can think of?
Not really. I think Ryan Overturf bringing in Surgical Extraction as a nod to stifling the really powerful Snapcaster Mage onto Path to Exile play, as well as just stripping all the Path to Exiles out of Nikolich's deck is going to be a fairly high priority. There's also a chance that, you know, the Surgical Extraction can just catch Nikolich in the wrong spot, let Ryan know that the shields are down in a very specific scenario, and allow Ryan to go for a really big Thing in the Ice transform play or something like that. I don't think there's a lot of change necessary. I think both players know their role in the matchup. Overturf knows that he needs to be the aggressor. Nikolich knows he's the control strat. And he has to do everything in his power to prolong the game so that all of his really powerful cards, like Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, Ascanto the Sunken Ruin, even Cryptic Command, gain full value. If the games are shorter, that usually advantages the Temur Phoenix player because those expensive cards aren't sticking around long enough to have much of an impact.
And you saw how important it was for the Phoenix deck to get out onto the battlefield very early in the matchup, able to leverage Manamorphose to have some hasty attackers very early in the game, and that pressure just kind of snowballed throughout the game, put Nikolich in some difficult positions over and over. Overturf able to leverage the counter magic that he was able to sideboard in and secure a victory there in game 2.
Yeah, I especially liked using Island plus Breeding Pool to cast the Manamorphose.
Why don't we go ahead and take a look at Benjamin Nikolich's player slide, becoming a fixture here on the SCG Tour. Only 21 years old, from Fairfax, Virginia. See, he played 16 Opens last season with 4 top 8s, 25% conversion. Pretty good, Todd. He had a win as well.
Yeah, winning the Columbus Open at the first part of last year with Jeskai Control, I believe. Beating Kevin Jones, playing Jeskai in the finals. So that's really where Nikolich started to make a name for himself, and he continues that legacy here in Baltimore this weekend with Jeskai Control, playing for top 8.
8 all-time top 8s over the years. Very nice start to Benjamin Nikolich's career, and I think he's just getting started. I think he's going to be around the SCG Tour for a very long time. Looks like the players are drawing their openers now. Maybe some mulligan action over on Nikolich's side. And we also have an update from one of the other tables. It sounds like the Azorius Aggro Mirror knotted up, Todd. 1 game apiece. Really tight series. Look at all those 1 versus 1s.
Yeah, if you wanted a sweat down to the wire to see who was going to make it into the elimination rounds, this is the match for you. All 3 going to the final game to determine a winner and one of those coveted spots in our top 8 here at SCG Baltimore.
Pressure definitely mounting down in the feature match area for all of these players right now. This is what you play Magic for. This is what you come for. You want to battle into those top 8s. And all these players know how important a win is going to be here.
the big thing for a lot of these players is going to be the point jumps for the race to the Players' Championship. I'm sure Benjamin Nikolich, Timothy Wu, and even Tommy Ashton have those points in the back of their mind, thinking this win here doesn't just represent a jump into the top 8 point bracket. It represents a chance to jump into the top 4 and the finals and even the winner's point bracket, where you're looking at 10, 20, 30, 40 points along the way, and those start to add up. And at the end of the season, you're going to look back and think, this was the match that I lost, and this is what cost me my bid into the Players' Championship.
Right. You never want to leave those points on the table. You hate to be able to look back and kick yourself. So all of these players are going to fight tooth and nail to secure a victory here.
I got a bruised foot from kicking myself over the years.
I think if we've played enough Magic over the years, we've all accumulated enough bruised feet. All have those moments you wish you could do over. The key is to seize them when you're there, and both these teams looking to do that right now. You see players just developing their mana to start. We have Celestial Colonnade and a fetch land on the side of Nikolich. Looks like a Steam Vents for Ryan Overturf. What's the play on turn 2? I see a couple of Arc-Light Phoenixes in hand, I believe. And we are getting an update now from the Legacy match. Tommy Ashton just secured 2-1 victory for his team. That's up a game for the Ashton side.
Yeah, and that I think is just the raw strength of this Grixis Phoenix deck really coming through here. But that's not the match we're talking about right now. We got Overturf going ballistic. Manamorphose into Faithless Looting.
Oh, yeah,
a
he's going to
handful of
pitch
red
2
cards.
Phoenixes here.
Multiple Phoenix going to the graveyard. 1 mana floating. What's it going to be?
Traverse the Uvenwald. Finally, it is cast. Does it have Delirium?
Yes, it does. Got instant sorcery, creature, and land. And that can go get something like Crackling Drake or even Thing in the Ice as a follow-up next turn.
Absolutely. A lot of options available to Overturf. But the big story here, 2 flying hasty 3/2 attackers on turn 2 for Overturf. Can't ask for much more from your opener.
No, you can't. On the second turn, no less. And with Nikolich, he needs a Surgical Extraction right now. For these Arc-Light Phoenixes, of course, they trigger at the beginning of combat. So if Nikolich doesn't have that Surgical Extraction, he's going to need to have multiple back-to-back answers for those 2 large flying birds.
Overturf going to get a Snapcaster Mage. I like that search up in this matchup. Let's see. Does Nikolich have the Surgical Extraction? Answer is no.
No, and Path to Exile is actually going to push Overturf closer to casting something like Crackling Drake, and maybe even a fetch here plus a second path. You're going to let him cast Crackling Drake plus Dispel or Spell Pierce backup.
Yeah, all kinds of setup for Overturf. I mean, he can even go Snapcaster Mage into Traverse next turn and go and get that Crackling. Like, a lot of options available to Overturf with that much mana.
Yeah, and the Delirium is currently shut down thanks to the Arc-Light Phoenixes returning. But, you know, there is a lot of potential next turn for Ryan Overturf to just continue this insane start that he had on turn 2. This is specifically the type of start you need against Jeskai Control. And with Nikolich not having that Surgical Extraction, things are turning sour.
Yeah, very good point. Currently no Delirium. You are right, Todd. So that's a play that's going to have to wait a bit. But the Crackling Drake is already in hand, already available to Overturf. We'll see if he wants to speed that out or wait a little bit until he can offer some protection for it. There is another Path to Exile for the Arc-Light Phoenix. Good answers from Nikolich. I mean, there's a lot of resources being given up, but at the same time, and the land is in hand. No search on the Path to Exile.
Pretty sure that was drawn for the turn, too. That is disappointing, but it's still not over.
I think we have 2 lands there, and the judge has caught it. We are going to stop, rewind.
Path to Exile does throw off the math quite a bit, but we got that fixed immediately. I believe it was teammate that stepped in and said, you've already played a land this turn. Lynn, obviously, on top of things. Her match along with Tommy Ashton is done, and we are just trying to make sure that everything stays clean and clear here for this modern match.
So Nikolich going to take back the turn here. 4 mana available. What's going to be the play?
Yeah, 3 blue here, notably.
Right, Cryptic Command available. And the play is going to be Cryptic Command. It's going to bounce that Crackling Drake. I believe it's going to draw a card as well. Yep, there we go.
Yeah, and I think Nikolich just doesn't want that to get hit with a Dispel or a Pierce.
Right.
That Crackling Drake, if you get to untap, is a lot of damage. Knowing that he doesn't have the answer right now, can find the answer, but also could just draw a land number 5 for that big angel in hand, whether it's Lear Dawnbringer or Baneslayer Angel. Both check Crackling Drake quite well.
Oh, yeah. Crackling Drake going to be redeployed, drawing another card, of course. See Overturf going to do some fetching here. More plays for Overturf to make, possibly. We'll see. Is going to get an untapped Breeding Pool, taking a little bit more damage.
Interesting getting Breeding Pool instead of Steam Vents in this spot, mostly because with just a few Traversal Overwald in your deck, very rare that you need access to a second green mana. But with Manamorphose, you know, green's not that big of a downside. I think really Overturf just needs to find a Lightning Axe to be able to deal with this big Angel should Nikolich draw that 5th mana source.
And I think he pulled it off the top there. Let's see. Having a look through the hand. Maybe not. Maybe there is no 5th mana source.
I think he's tanking. I think his hand is Cryptic Command and a land and a Lyra Dawnbringer. And if he goes for Lyra Dawnbringer and it gets smushed by a Lightning Axe, that could be lights out for Nikolich next turn.
Dangerous spot for sure. Big point in this match here for Nikolich. He's going to go ahead and cast Surgical Extraction. Falling to 13. What's the target on the Surgical Extraction?
Love it. I mean, it's probably Faithless Looting.
That would be my guess.
That's the one with flashback that is currently sitting around. I think this is more for information. He wants to know, oh, there's a Lightning Axe. Oh, there's 2 Lightning Axes. They're at the bottom of the deck. Wish they would stay there, but you got to shuffle, baby.
Right, time to shuffle.
So these Faithless Lootings are all going to get exiled, including the one in the graveyard. And then we're going to see if Ryan Overturf can find one of those Lightning Axes for that big Angel that's about to come to play. Now, here's the thing. Do I actually want to exile all the Faithless Lootings that are in your deck? Because the more you exile, the bigger the power of Crackling Drake. Yeah. That is hilarious. He's thinking about it.
That is the question.
Do I want to put those back in the deck? I don't know. This is hard.
You know, this match could hinge on something as small as did he exile 3 Faithless Lootings or did he exile 4 Faithless Lootings? It absolutely could be the determining point of this game, so it's worth at least to think. Ultimately, Nikolich does say they're all going.
Yep. And I think that's fine. There are so many powerful ways to utilize Faithless Looting in this Temur Phoenix deck that even though you're pumping the Crackling Drake, if the Crackling Drake ever hits you once, chances are it's going to hurt quite a bit. And if it's a few more points, as long as it's not lethal, it's effectively the same as being lethal. Or, sorry, as long as it's not lethal, it's effectively the same thing.
Right.
So he's at 13. 4 Faithless Looting in the exile. Looks like 3 in the grave, so that's 7 power. Land plus Lyra Dawnbringer here. As long as there's no Lightning Axe off the top of the deck for Overturf.
That'll hold the fort very effectively for the time being.
Absolutely.
Pushes Overturf to try and establish those Awoken Horrors, instead going to have to lean on the Thing in the Ice flip to take this game.
Now, we're in a spot here where Nikolich is actually pretty low on resources, where Overturf has a handful of cards.
Right.
Morphos to cycle, perhaps another cantrip like a Thought Scour, Serum Visions somewhere along the way, which could be used to dig for one of those Lightning Axes. But at the time being, Nikolich doesn't really have the ability to attack with the Lyra Dawnbringer. Doesn't have the 6 mana to activate Colonnade to potentially block the Crackling Drake. And, you know, it's pretty dangerous if you do. Now, we do have an off-camera match that is concluded that I myself care about quite a bit. Ross Merriam, Tannen Grace, as well as Jim Davis won their final match. Their record is going to be 11-4, and they're going to be sweating some tiebreakers to try to get in at 8th place here at SCG Baltimore.
Yeah, very uncertain right now whether that win's going to be enough for that team. Here you see Overturf. It's time to deploy those Thing in the Ice. Both of them entering the battlefield. 4 counters apiece. These can be chained through pretty quickly. Manamorphose in hand. Overturf is going to deploy that. Down to 3 counters. Going to take a draw off the top of the deck.
I love this play from Ryan. He's trying to figure out which colors of mana to make. He has a blue card in hand, a gut shot. He found a Surgical Extraction. That's the free card he needs to transform these things in the ice right now. It's going to bounce Lyra Dawnbringer. It's going to bounce the Crackling Drake as well. But if Nikolich taps out for Lear Dawnbringer again next turn, that's going to put him in a spot.
Yes, but
where
there's a possibility that Overturf could end the game this turn. If he Surgical Extractions his own thing again, it'll make the Crackling Drake even larger. I'm sorry, it's going to bounce the Crackling Drake.
It is going to bounce the Crackling Drake.
I got real excited for a second
You
there,
excited
Tom.
me for a second.
Whew, let's all take a deep breath. Let's back up a little bit. Instead, the Surgical Extraction is going to hit these cryptic commands.
Yeah, that's a smart play by Ryan. He's going to Surgical first to see just how he wants to play the rest of this turn. He can go ahead and bounce the Lear Dawnbringer right now by going Gut Shot plus, I believe, Thought Scour with his blue and red floating.
So that begs the question, is that actually what he wants to do right now?
I absolutely think so, because if he does, he can bounce the Lear Dawnbringer, and then if it gets recast, he gets to attack with the things in the ice for 14,
right,
which will force a chump block from the Lear Dawnbringer.
Yes, very good play pattern for sure.
And now Ryan is taking quite a bit of damage here, but I think he's going to be at just enough life to survive something like a Lightning Bolt or a Lightning Helix. And he's taking away all the Cryptic Commands and all the Path to Exiles from Nikolich's removal suite. And this Gut Shot going to transform both those as well as that Snapcaster Mage. Crackling Drake going to be returned to the hand to be potentially redeployed next turn. But no real defenses for these two copies of Thing in the Ice for Nikolich. He's going to need a real big draw off the top.
Oh, yeah. Needs an absolute miracle. An actual miracle would be nice. Nikolich actually not playing any of those, unfortunately.
I don't know how many spells Overturf just cast for 2 mana. Was that Manamorphose, a Gut Shot, a Snapcaster Mage, 2 copies of Surgical Extraction? That sounds like 5 spells of a 2 mana. What in the world's happening?
Average converted mana cost in this deck of like 0.5.
Yeah.
Seems fair. So here's a big draw from Nikolich. Let's see what the top of the deck yields. It is an Electrolyze. Not much to offer.
That's not it. You know, I talked to Chief recently, and he told me it's ain't it. All right, so it looks like Nikolich here, he's maybe not quite dead. He could cast Lear Dawnbringer, jump block, effectively go to 16, which the attack puts him down to 9. Not dead.
Technically.
Technically speaking.
Technically. Still
you are technically not dead. That's the best kind of not dead.
Still a huge need for a miracle from Nikolich's deck over the next couple of turns.
Fortunately, not playing Terminus.
Right.
Now, Nikolich's deck may not still be there, but 1 copy, main deck of Supreme Verdict, none in the sideboard. Okay? 1 copy of Settle the Wreckage, main deck.
Okay.
None in the sideboard.
No, 1 in the sideboard as well,
1 in the sideboard.
Yeah. So there's, we don't know what's left in Nikolich's deck at this point, but there's some potential outs.
Well, he 100% just has to cast Lear Dawnbringer this turn. Cycling Electrolyze does nothing. It leaves him with the ability to draw nothing because the Path to Exiles are gone. Celestial Purge doesn't target Awoken Horror. So it's at this juncture, he just needs to cast Lear Dawnbringer and hope the top of his deck is the perfect card.
I think so. I think his play has been dictated to him, which is exactly the position you want to be in against the control deck. You have to say, this is what you need to do to survive. But Nikolich disagrees.
Oh, he can find a Lightning Bolt off the
he's just
top.
looking for the Lightning Bolt.
Or Lightning Helix. This gives him so many outs. How did I miss it? It's an island. And that's the match for Ryan Overturf. We're tied up here. 1-1. Ryan Overturf takes down this match against Benjamin Nikolich. We got a Game 3 over between Timothy Wu and Jacob Hagen and a Azorius aggro mirror match to see who gets into our elimination rounds here at SCG Baltimore.
I actually love that line from Nikolich. That's what it means to play to win as opposed to play not to lose. That's the perfect example of playing in a fashion that actually gives you a chance to win the game. Because if he just plays the Baneslayer Angel, he's ultimately losing that game. He needs like a 1-outer to have a chance to come back. If he's playing towards instead the Lightning Helix, Lightning Bolt combination, there's way more outs in the deck at that point.
Yeah, and going for it right there while Overturf is tapped out also means that Overturf can't kill him with a Lightning Axe off the top of the deck or effectively kill him by drawing Dispel or Spell Pierce to go alongside that Snapcaster Mage.
Exactly.
So understanding exactly what was going on there, went for the quite large outer there with the Electrolyze to the face, looking for one of those 3-point burn spells off the top. But we got a game 3 here. Let's see what happens between Timothy Wu and Jacob Hagen.
This is for an increasingly large amount of marbles. Now, the prior games were for a good amount of marbles. This is for, like, a significant amount of marbles.
Dude, these games have been sick.
Absolutely.
This is going to be the worst game of them all by a lot. It's just going to be someone misses their third land drop. The other person goes, History Benalia, Benalish Marshall, GG.
These games can snowball, absolutely. You can also sometimes see interesting games with players jockeying for position. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's guaranteed to be the worst game. There's a lot on the line, too. That'll do a lot to clean up what could otherwise be an uninteresting game. If you add a lot of stakes to it, every game is interesting. So it'll be interesting to see what the players do here. See both players on board early. A little bit better start from Hagen's side. Only the Legion's Landing for Timothy Wu thus far. Going to trade off that token for the Dauntless Bodyguard. Sky Marcher Aspirant going to remain on the battlefield.
Yeah, and +1 life here for Timothy Wu. That 1 life could end up mattering here in just a few turns.
Oh, yeah.
The first 2 turns here from Timothy Wu actually went Glacial Fortress, and you have to imagine that third land off the top definitely feels good to hit.
Oh, yeah. Deploying History of Benalia, one of the big threats in this matchup, to be sure.
Yeah, specifically because it can generate 2 threats.
Yep. Turn's going to go back to Hagen. Takes a draw. Looks like we found a Deputy of Detention. That will clean up some tokens pretty nicely.
Yeah, that's a really nice pickup here. I would guess that Hagen actually plays literally any other card that's not Deputy Detention in an attempt to snag both of those 2/2s on the next turn.
Hagen's hand is actually just removal and lands, I think. I think it's 2 Baffling Ends, Deputy of Detention, and a bunch of lands.
Yeah, this is a pretty odd start here for Jacob Hagen, but one that could work out in his favor if he's able to capitalize on this Deputy Detention tempo swing on all these Knight tokens. Another History Benalia here would be so good, so good for Jacob Hagen, but that ain't it.
Yeah, instead something good for Timothy Wu. It's a Johnny, and it's going to go ahead and put some counters on those Knight tokens. As we know, Hagen, with the means to deal with these tokens, going to take a little damage here, fall to 17. I would expect Deputy Detention going to join the party fairly soon.
Oh, absolutely, and the body on Deputy Detention actually allowing a little bit more pressure against that Johnny could help him take it down here in just a few short turns.
And there you see Deputy Detention getting rid of both of those tokens.
Yeah, and now
and 2 damage towards a Johnny.
Right. And effectively neutered that History Benalia completely.
Absolutely.
Dealt 3 damage. That's it.
Yeah, not the kind of output you usually expect from History of Benalia. Tim Wu still with some cards in hands. Looks like a 5th land as well as 2 spells. Maybe a Dauntless Bodyguard and a Sky Marcher Aspirant. Yes, they are.
Yep. And that's 2 creatures more towards pushing towards Legion's Landing.
Right. Flipping that is going to be instrumental towards Timothy finding a way to win this matchup.
Right, but it looks like a pair of Baffling Ends on Jacob Hagen's side means this might clean out the blockers, send a Johnny down to 1, and I believe Timothy Wu's actually out of relevant cards in hand.
Yeah, this is a wild, wild game. Actually, Hagen's a little bit flooded with answers, but Wu's a little bit light on threats, and it's all working out to generate kind of a place of parity right now.
Right, and this is Johnny's all the way down to 1. It's going to be ticking up to 2. If Timothy Wu is able to deploy 1 blocker here for that 2-power creature, as well as tick it up with a Johnny, we could see a really swinging game.
I think it's a land. I think it's a land off the top for Wu.
That's so unfortunate.
Wu out of gas at this point. Passes the turn back. That's going to be it for a Johnny. And was that Benalish Marshall off the top?
I think it was. This is
no, that's in a Johnny.
Wow,
that's a big draw from Jacob Hagen.
Here's a question. Do you play around Settle the Wreckage?
Oh, boy.
There was 1 copy in Luis Scott Vargas's deck at the Pro Tour.
I will spoil it for you. There is none in Timothy Wu's, but
no one would.
Jacob Hagen does not know that 100%.
He doesn't play around it, and I think that is 100% the correct play.
Oh, yeah.
Timothy Wu here flooding out.
Yeah.
Everything just going gangbusters for Jacob Hagen. He found the Johnny of his own. He has 2 creatures in play. He has cleared all the threats from Timothy Wu's side of the battlefield, and he's crunching in here for 7 points of damage. The door's closing quickly for Timothy Wu.
Yeah, and I think Jacob drew a Conclave Tribunal for whatever Timothy may have on subsequent turns, and he just extends the hand. Unfortunately flooded out there, and the team of Lynn, Overturf, and Hagen Looks like they're going to advance to our top 8. We don't count chickens before they hatch, but it looks really good.